oh, let's check this out. This has been on my list for a while. Somebody reached out to me a while back on email, and they were asking about this new panel concept that they had. The idea was that we would take some some cues from more formal debate structures, and then we would put these into a Twitch thing that then people would have to follow. So we take the rules from somewhere else, and then we apply them to a new kind of panel. And it had like an 8-part structure or something to it. And that sounds like, if you guys remember, a while back, we had made some recommendations for panels that kind of had more complicated setups to them. So you kind of had a lot more structure to each part of it, to each act of it, so that the participants would know what the purpose is. And the idea was, if the participants know what the purpose of each thing is, they'll strategize accordingly. Whereas like the current panel format is basically intros, outros, and battle, right? And having battle be so open makes it difficult to do anything productive, because people don't have the structure to like use as bumpers, so to keep them in line. We have very, very, very structured opening and very, very, very structured closing. So like people have kind of formatted how they talk to fit these, right? Sometimes they'll make a joke knowing that somebody else can't respond or something like that. And in the closings, maybe they'll like make fun of somebody else knowing they can't respond, right? We kind of have some limited strategic decisions that we could make given that we have a protected open and close. And the rules, which is that everybody's going to be protected, nobody else can interrupt, kind of give us the limitations we need to come up with interesting ways of working within that system. But without any idea of rules, people are just kind of left to like float as they please and meander around and twist around and not really go like any particularly interesting direction. They're just like in school when you saw like a diagram of gas molecules. They're just kind of like that. They just kind of bounce around and flop all over the place. They kind of don't do anything. It's not very interesting to watch this.
Hey guys, I just wanted to clarify, again, just before you watch the entire video, that any criticisms that I have of panels, their structure, their outcomes, all of that's based on my personal taste. So in this video, I'll be critiquing that, as well as providing some alternatives that I think will better test the personality and character of panel guests. So what I'm looking to expand upon or increase is like the variability in the use of these personalities, of these cool people that we have on the panels. So I want to see them engage in new and interesting ways that maybe explores more of their character and gives them an opportunity to show us more than what they normally are able to in the panels that currently exist on Twitch. If you're watching this a year or two from now, it could very well be that we've already done this and there's a bunch of fun like game show sort of panels, which we'll talk about later in the video, but I don't want to spoil it. Back to it.
And over time, they learn just like certain behaviors. Like, you know, if I get to a corner as quick as possible and bounce around, then I can like cover the whole thing. I don't know. If we don't create any rules, we don't create any guides to like how people should strategize. And so they're left to their own devices, and their own devices typically create things that we don't want. So by putting in structure, we can start to control the behavior that we're going to see. And what this thing did was, instead of just the opening and closing, it had a lot of different sorts of parts to it. And these different parts had different rules. So maybe this one was more rounded, and when you hit this wall, you'll disappear and you'll just go away forever. In this little square here, in this little block of time, in this part of the show, if we bump into this and we disappear, we might see that these dots will avoid going to that side, right? Because anybody that ever like flopped into here, just a lot like nature, things will just kind of naturally progress one way or the other, and it depends on the restrictions we put on them. That's why I think organizing the segments of your panel will create more predictable behavior. And the only thing that's predictable about randomness is randomness, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And it's just kind of random. It's not even dependent on the people that we put into here, which some of the panel show hosts seem to think. And I initially thought, but at this point, I'm not thinking anymore. Because the behavior that happens in this free-for-all zone is so primitive, there's kind of like only a few predictable kinds of people. There's the people who just have like dumb as fuck takes, right? And so we can predict that like people will jump on this person and make fun of them. If this person that's dumb as fuck is also like loud, then we can especially guess that like the conversation is going to happen a certain way. And then the people with like really big personalities, I don't know, we'll do this. I don't know, it's kind of Bastier. Bastier is one of them. I don't know. There's a lot of poofy hair. These people that are kind of all, you know, big personalities, they're going to kind of dominate. But these are the only ones that are predictable. There's also like the shy people who like never say anything. And it's just kind of these. The shy people kind of never say anything. They float around and do whatever. It's just a lot of the big personalities arguing with the dumb as fuck people. And depending on the flavor of big personality, maybe they argue amongst themselves with each other. Right. And then these guys just kind of sit and watch. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of dynamic between big personalities, people that are dumb as fuck and usually also loud, and then quiet people. And the way that these elements play out here is boring, quite honestly, because it doesn't allow the personality aspect of these interesting people to come out, because we don't give enough rules to make that happen. And then there's shy people and they just don't get to say anything. I don't think this like produces results that we want. And I don't think that like all of the show's predictability, like I don't think that 80% of it should come from knowing these aspects of the people. If we can guess 80% of the time how a show is going to go based on who's dumb as fuck and loud, who has a big personality and who is quiet, if these are the conditions that determine all of the outcomes, that's not really good. Like ideally, we would want these outcomes to be determined by like the kinds of people, or like kind of what is the ploy of the Dylan Burns show, for example, is that we can kind of determine this based on right versus left. That like maybe certain kinds of left, like the people that, you know, like the Bastiers that are like able to talk well, and maybe some people on the right of various kinds. There are also Bastiers of the right, definitely, for sure. But there are also the quiet people of the right. There are the last usernames, and there are a lot of these over here as well. And then there are just the big personalities. So I think even though we can split like ideologically between the right and the left, because two clear groups form in here, like we left them to their own devices, but like some group over here and bounce around randomly together, and this group over here kind of bounces around randomly together. But like just because we can group these, I don't think that adds anything to it. I think a lot of like the dynamics of this group, like the directions they go and stuff, are still mostly determined by these attributes here. So who has like opinions nobody agrees with, who's loud about those opinions, and then who's loud just in general with big personalities and like trying to entertain. And they're the quiet people. Again, 80%, there will be some times when this doesn't play out that way, or something interesting happens, like one of these guys has like an epiphany about their position, or one of these guys actually like gets trumped by somebody who normally doesn't talk, like what you're describing there. But again, we can still like classify it by what's going on here. So I don't know. Anywho, so it sets up a bunch of different parts. These parts have different goals and objectives, which are going to create some different kinds of behavior. My recommendation when I was thinking about this was to have a section where it's who gets let in that is the interesting rule, that not all four people from the two sides will be allowed into every single talk. That each talk, there's either through a limit, so either there's only like 2 holes here for people to get into the room, right? As in we only have 2 slots, or that there has to be a vote maybe for like a single important person to come in, or it's not beneficial. So if we make it to where having more people, so as your number of people grows, the difficulty should of winning the conversation should also go up. So creating rules that kind of dissuade your team from putting as many people into the argument as possible, and that every single round we have different options as far as who we're going to put in there, and perhaps even different rules for who's allowed in or how many people, or how we discourage people from joining. Because part of the thing that is annoying about this as well is if we're just going to have two people talk about something, that's kind of okay. The audience expects that. So if we could have two people talking to each other that we would like to hear talk to each other on the topic, I think we should encourage that. How can we encourage that? Well, I think limiting the number of people that talk and forcing these groups to determine who the spokesperson for their ideals are is going to create a situation where we're going to see more interesting discussions, more pointed discussions, discussions where the people that are in the room and talking are more invested because they reflect something greater than just their own perspective. They're reflecting the perspective of their entire group, which adds a bit of politics in here, which makes them more likely to actually work in some efficient way. But we'll see how that works out, because I haven't seen people go into this and I don't know how they're going to interact in here. But I imagine that these constraints for sure affect the decision making on who needs to go into there, which is something that changes the whole dynamic entirely. And if more people actually causes a problem for your side, how does that influence your decision on how many you put in? Because realistically in the conversation, it is of great detriment to everybody listening that there are so many people that talk, because it is way tougher to follow, and not everybody gets the time and whatever, and the time that people get is not weighted at all to how much they contribute to the discussion, nor how interesting it is to listen to them, though they would have you believe that. So I like what you're getting at. Awesome. Yeah. So what I'm talking about, I wish people would just steal ideas and just go do them. I don't want to do this. That's why I'm like, Honest to God, if I had a better PC setup and I was at the office, I might be tempted to do panels and stuff, like to host them. But for the people who like that, there's an idea for you. There are certain things we can tweak the number of people. This is something where, this is going to change the way that stuff works. Tweak the number of people, change talk time. Anything that's going to change how talk time works is going to help you, whether that's limiting everybody. Like, imagine if we had a system that was akin to what people in government have, where you have a limited amount of time that you can speak for and you can yield that time to other people strategically.
Fuck you, Michael Moore. I refuse to call you an officer or a chief because you don't deserve those titles. You are a disgrace. Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Like, how cool would that be? If you're having a big, roundtable discussion with, 8 people, and somebody's going on and on and on about something that you know that this other person is going to disagree with. Let's say you're at the round table, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Big table. And dude over here is saying A, B, C, and you're thinking to yourself over at the corner of the table, A, B, C? I know about A, B, C. This guy next to me would fucking roast this dude on the topic of ABC, but maybe he doesn't have enough time, or maybe he's not jumping on that opportunity. Fuck it, dude. All right, I'll give him my time. Hey, I yield my time to so-and-so to discuss the topic of ABC. Wow. Now, this isn't really how it works in government, but this is a way that you could change it to work for Twitch. How funny would that be if you could put somebody on the spot and you could throw time at them and force them to do that? I think that would change the dynamic between these people, to look at this part here, this section here that's normally just open and free to do whatever, and put a few constraints in there just to create some interesting behavior between people, or to give people the opportunity to strategize beyond just what we understand you can do to distinguish yourself, which is be big, talk a lot, interrupt. When you speak, make it meaningful. Jump on somebody that does something wrong because it'll get you more brownie points than trying to change the topic or something like that. Be careful with your opinions because the same could happen to you. If you say something everybody disagrees with, they'll jump on you for the entire conversation. Yeah, that's been interesting to see for however many years we've been doing it, but it's boring for me, at least. I don't know. I like this idea. I think the panelists who sit out get to support the ones who get picked. 100%, yeah. If you're sitting out here, and this is the other cool thing is, like I was talking about before, one of the rules that we can come up with that'll provide more interesting strategies and conversations is to limit the number of people that are allowed to speak. Normally, you might think that that means one at a time, please. But there's more than that. There's more than just one at a time. What we can do is we can separate the whole entirety of a panel show, so from start to finish, into pieces, right? And we can say that these pieces will each have their own individual rules. Maybe in these segments here, which are 15 minutes, maybe in these segments, the rule is that you can only have 2 people talk, and that from the 2 sides that we identified before, whether that's right and left or whatever, they get to nominate one person each that gets to speak for that 15 minutes on whatever the topic is.
I call for a vote.
And here's the other thing. Besides the number of people dimension, you also get to change the topic dimension, which most of the hosts on here are typically used to changing. So in this 15 minutes, we can select a topic, but we can do more than that. The topic doesn't need to just be something that the host has chosen. What we can do to create a more dynamic panel show experience is to have the topic be something that the people who are a part of the conversation pick. And not something that they pick beforehand, but something that they have to pick in response to something that happens in the conversation. The old advice that I gave is that for this section here, we can have a different set of rules for maybe 30 minutes where everybody is able to talk all at once like normal, and we just have a moderator in there keeping things legit, and that we give them a topic with a goal. For here at the topic level, we can have a topic with a goal. The goal might be that everybody in the conversation has to have a vote on 3 different measures at the end of the conversation. And the group that submitted the measure, which was selected the most, wins. Something like that. You could easily gamify this topic however you want. So you can set up a topic with a clear goal. The 15 minutes that follows this free discussion period can be for a topic that everybody voted on and selected. So based on the way that this 30 minutes goes, people may want to discuss something in particular that's different than they would have at the beginning of the conversation. So if we're all having a conversation, for instance, about healthcare in the United States, but there seems to be a hang-up between the left and the right about abortion, they may choose to take 15 minutes to discuss the particulars of how you would implement that change and account for abortion. And there may need to be compromise there depending on the rules for the show. Again, if we have a topic with a goal where you have to vote on some like fake legislation at the end of a political talk, for instance, then that creates a situation where you need to compromise during these 15 minutes. Who are you going to select that's allowed into round 1 if you can only have one person? Are you going to pick the hot-headed personalities that are currently dominating the panel shows? Maybe they're a good advocate, you know? Sometimes maybe it's best to pick the contrarian. Like, if we feel like there's a contrarian on our team that's voicing a concern that we actually haven't been able to voice very properly, and they're okay with speaking about something that they know is like socially unacceptable or whatever, perhaps we select them. But at the same time, and this is who I'm really trying to help, there are a lot of shy people who have very specific things that they're good at. Not to say that Dylan is shy, but Dylan knows a lot about foreign policy, for example. Dylan Burns of the Hippy Dippy podcast. Supreme from the Battle Lounge TV has a lot of interesting experience in the military and with contracting and time spent abroad. So like there are interesting things that he can speak on. Anybody that grew up poor can speak to that experience. Anybody who's African American can speak to that experience. Like there are lots of people that have different reasons why we might want to hear from them depending on their experiences. And I just don't think we get to use that as much in the current panel. So if, for instance, we have a conversation where we need to talk about how BLM is different between the leadership and the people on the ground, we might want to pick somebody who is a protester like IRI to go in there and speak on behalf of protesters and what they're up to. That might be a better person to select over even somebody who's outspoken that supports the protesters like Bastier. You might not want somebody as fiery as Bastier making arguments with people who are not privy to your side already, right? You might prefer IRI, who's able to reach across the aisle and speak to a lot of the things that the conservatives believe in. So there's more room for strategy when you limit the number of people who are allowed to partake in that discussion, particularly when you take that limitation, that number of people allowed, and you gamify it in some way, whether that's through a vote of people on that team, or whether that's through some other system you've created, which maybe randomly selects people, or any number of things, right? An entirely different show that's designed to be more memey and fun might have this 30-minute section where everybody argues, and it may also have a 10-minute section where a random person from both teams is selected to defend on a topic, and those teams have to quickly get all their points together with that person and create a plan for arguing it in that 10 minutes. And we don't know who it's going to be, and we don't know what we want to defend or whatever. Like that, there's plenty of fun ways that we could structure this and play around with it. But I think starting to see rules as not something that is negative, not something that is always trying to restrict what the streamers can do or whatever, to view it as something that like creates more avenues for fun is what I want more hosts to start thinking about, or even prospective hosts. Because I understand with Prime Kai and other panels, a lot more people are coming into this space, a lot more people are interested in speaking their mind, and a lot more people are starting to come around to the idea that these panels are not the best environment for hashing out ideas. Like Aiden Wood and people that are on her team would more or less say that panels are not an environment for educating. They're not an environment for learning things. And they may not even be a good environment for debate or for hashing out ideas, right? So if you're on that end of the spectrum, I want there to be a place for you. The same way that for the people who really like panels as a place to rigorously challenge their ideas and whatever, I don't think that's really the best place for you. And I think you could imagine a place where you're better able to hash out ideas, or where through structure or through some other changes in rules, you're better able to focus in on the parts you want to, whether that's agreeing on a policy, agreeing in general, proving an idea wrong, or coming away with something that you both can hold on to from the conversation. Because yet a third thing that I talked about as being something that we could do is one where it's one-on-one, right, with maybe a mod in between. And what we could do is the entire point of the conversation is going to be this end segment here. Maybe 5 minutes where we have to pick some statements that everybody can agree on. And then they have to post those on their Twitter, or we can make it any kind of fun little thing. It doesn't have to, but I'm just saying that could be a fun thing, that you guys have to agree on some statements that you can post on your Twitter. And that way, anybody that's signing up for this conversation, knowing they're going to do a one-on-one or a panel or whatever, understands that there's something for them to get out of it at the end, that there's some productive end in mind. And that's also going to guide the entire conversation, because the whole point is to get to this 5 minutes where we're going to choose the statements we can agree on and hopefully move forward to understanding other people's perspectives. Panels are becoming oversaturated. I totally agree. Oh, Doghouse, good to see you around. Do you have an idea of how the players change over multiple iterations? It seems like the side that loses the first week might change their strategy dramatically week 2 and so forth. Yeah, 100%. So I don't know how they would change, because my predictions are obviously going to be off. My predictive capacity is very poor.
I have approximate knowledge of many things.
I'm mostly imaginative. So if I were to imagine, I would say exactly what you're talking about, that groups that lost really hard in the first few weeks might start to change their tack. It depends on where they failed. If they feel like they're failing in this 15-minute section, they might start deciding to include people that are better advocates for their argument. They may even start to find that some of these larger personalities are actually poor advocates for the position that you need when the whole game is built around talking to the other side. A lot of the people that we agree with on our own team that reflect our own ideas are typically a bombastic version of those ideas. They're typically over the top. They take it too far. They overextend. And that's just never clear until they're put up against somebody who is the exact opposite. It's not until we see these personalities engage with people on the other side that we start to understand how disconnected they are, or how unable they are to talk to somebody who isn't already predisposed to their position. And so I do think that this would change kind of how we start to see big personalities. Perhaps those that are able to succeed in this space are those that prioritize agreement and compromise and the real bits of politics that I think are interesting, which is part of why I'm proposing it this way. But yeah, it could go any number of ways. I do wonder what the new thing will be, and wonder where Twitch politics will be in a year. I guess it depends on how many people are willing to try something new. which is why I think I wanted to take a moment to just advocate for any number of many different kinds of changes that you could make. So we talked about the number of people, we talked about talk time, we also talked about how topic selection can be gamified, right? You can say X leads to Y, leads to, triangle, leads to circle. I don't know. You can create some system for topic selection that it constantly produces new and interesting topics. This doesn't need to be something that is determined and set by God at the beginning of the conversation. I really think it should be dependent on how the people that are in your panel think about the topic, right? And we see that happen time and time again, where people come into a talk, they hear the topic, and they have a completely different conceptualization of it compared to the other side. And oftentimes, the contention in panels that are focused on discussion and argument and things like that, oftentimes the contention is the focus. We want to focus on the parts where we disagree or where we see things differently, so that we can come to some idea of sameness. We come to some picture we can both agree on. And so the idea of selecting the entire topic based on one vague question at the beginning seems to be backwards when we think about how these conversations actually play out and what we're looking to happen out of them. Now, if it's just entertainment, then the vague thing works. But I'm saying if people honestly want to see different kinds of conversations on the platform, somebody is going to have to suck it up and create different environments for those things to happen. As it stands now, I don't think you can expect that just by changing the kinds of people that you put into this conversation or the different maybe sides that you put in the conversation. I think we've learned that that's not really how you get different outcomes. The one way to get different outcomes is to change the rules. You have to change the environment that these people are participating in to start to see them behave in a different way. So that's just one version, right? Because the other thing that we talk about when we're talking about panels and stuff is we talk about what the audience wants. And we talk about it like we want the audience to like stuff. Some segment of the audience is going to like debate bro stuff, but I don't think it's as big as we really think it is. I think everybody enjoys debate bro stuff, but for different reasons. I think everybody has a part of them that's privy to drama. And so I think that's really why we see large audiences, is because everybody, regardless of the flavor of conversation they'd actually want to see, is okay with drama. Drama will always trigger something in them, whether they actually want debate bro stuff or whether they want to see people talk about BLM or whether they want to see things from a protester's angle or electoral politics or revolutionary politics, all these different things. I think there's a lot of difference between these groups and there's a lot of variety in what they like. And actually, if you look at the segment of the audience that is mostly debate bro stuff and put them aside, I think you'll realize there's still a lot left for you. And there's a lot of overlap. It's not helpful to pretend that people are only interested in one kind of content, because as creators, we share so many chatters. We share so many of you guys that are a part of various communities that I think it's foolhardy to say that we can divide them up so simply when there seems to be a lot of overlap between these communities. I like this idea so much. I wonder if gamer/politics people will figure out some kind of a meta faster than the politics only people will. Yeah, that'd be cool. I feel like young political memers put in more preparation than mainstream people sometimes. Yeah. Well, because when people are coming from outside, and then let's say that this is like Twitch, and we have all the streamers and they're screaming and yelling at each other and they're, sending DMs. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't see as viewers and we don't know until we then step into the Twitch space and interact with everybody, DM each other, be in these talks, see what happens before. What is the planning like? What is drama like? How are people different in person than they are on their own stream? You start to learn a bunch of stuff that you didn't know before and that would be unreasonable to expect you to know as a viewer. You're turned on to things that could have been apparent to you as a viewer, but I wouldn't expect you to know. So for instance, streamers are different when they're by themselves on their own stream versus when they are with all of their friends, right? And they're different with their friends than they are when they're on a panel show, right? I don't know how to represent panel show. Maybe like this in a table. They're going to be different in all these scenarios. And it's by combining A and B and C that you form some idea of the person. But more than this, there are aspects of that person you can't see. There's their day-to-day life, right? Which we can't see at all. And then there is the messages and the way that they behave behind the scenes, which you can't see. You can at least get the messages behind the scenes, but you'll never get this. You'll never get that. And this is something that's like a rough reminder for people who spend hours and hours knowing this, and then assuming then that they can have some semblance of an idea for what the parts they don't see are like, but they really don't. And that's because people's incentives here versus here are very different, right? Which is another thing you start to realize what is important to focus on. It's incentives for Twitch streamers. There are Twitch streamers who are more so incentivized by the audience, and there are Twitch streamers who are incentivized by the audience when they're on panels, but when they're with their own community, they're not. And so it's strange. And so you start to realize this. Or there are some streamers who change their personality according to the audience. And so you will be able to see a change depending on who the audience is. There's lots of interesting things that you pick up on once you join the Twitch thing. Turning this into something that's going to be digestible to people, or coming up with ideas that are interesting and selling them to the viewers in a way that'll be digestible to them is what I'm trying to do. I find this useful. I'll definitely watch this VOD and catch what I missed. I'm happy to hear that. That's cool as fuck. Especially since the VOD experience on Twitch is so lousy. Unless you have encoding, it's a goddamn nightmare, I'll tell you. I'd put that on my fridge. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all are getting premium artistry for free. Oh, you guys should see the... This will make you think I'm not a good artist, but we drew Bastier the other day. We drew Bastier as a Jedi. So basically, you can do a bunch of fun stuff with panels. I feel like I've said my piece on it. I figured that's the extent of the panel thing I want to talk about. I say this every so often, maybe like once every month or two. I try to remind people of the way that panels could work, but alas, is to no avail. I don't think it's going to change unless I change it, to be honest. Should just host your own panel. We were talking about that. I have to get my computer set up a little bit better. Imagine streamers caring about anyone but themselves. Well, that's the thing, is like you can selfishly not care about yourself, right? Like let's say you were a big personality, IRI, like you are currently, and you go on to one of these, and it's a topic you know a lot. Everybody's like, damn, IRI is about to get, he's about to pimp this shit out. He's going to get all of the fucking talk time from all these people because he's the best motherfucker to talk about this situation. And let's say you get all that, right? You're on your high horse, you know, you're there, and you choose, I want to hear how other people do this. If you're going to give me your time, I'm going to pass it on to somebody else. Maybe there could still be a game there. Maybe you could keep passing that block on. Like, it'd be funny if in a conversation there was a rule that was like hot potato, where you can give a minute to somebody else, and if they pass on that minute, they have to give a minute of their own time. And so maybe you have this hot potato of like responding to a certain point in the conversation that nobody wants to, and you can avoid it. Like, I don't think we're being quite as creative with how it could play out. I think people on the top could just as easily take the access they have to all this talk time and distribute it to other people, because that also looks good for viewers. If you're confident enough in your personality and your perspective that you know that, like, I have a big stream, viewers will come back at the end to watch me, and I do enough of these panels that it's probably not super important, then you could use this as an opportunity to give other people time, or to bolster the opinions and perspectives of smaller streamers like you already do, and it does make you look good, while at the cost of your ability to talk about yourself or voice your own beliefs on stuff. So I do think that there are incentives set up in a way where it could go any number of ways, I think. I think the hardest thing is the agreement idea, which I think would require a certain special kind of moderator, which I would love to do, but again, I don't... this situation, this setup is not ideal. We're quite messy over here, so maybe not until I'm more stable, but if I was, I would be down to do it probably, yeah. Just like once every 2 weeks or once a week or something, and then, you know, pick cool people and take some time to explain it to them before and have fun with it. Yeah. Because I think I know enough people who I think are serious and who would listen to rules enough to like rub together to make it happen. It's just a matter of if they're interested in doing it. Like, let's say we wanted to do them with 4 people. I could easily pick 4 people that would follow rules. Like, we could easily do, if Dylan wanted to do it, Dylan follows rules. Aiko can follow rules. Dario can follow rules. Who else can follow rules? Muff and Weasel can follow rules. Lux can follow. Like, I would say most people. There's only a few people I'm thinking of who are like particularly problematic, who I don't think we could include. But like, I think you could try this out initially with all sorts of people. And it doesn't matter who the personalities are, because that would be kind of part of the fun in trying the new system. Like, if there was just like a duo of like 2v2 left v right, it'd be interesting to see which partner they choose to like put into this round if you're only allowed one person. Like even a small groups of people, or even just doing 4 people total in this round, in this idea where we all have talk times. I think it'd be interesting. What do you think would happen if chat voted people out like Survivor? I think it would just end up with all the right wings voted off. Maybe. I mean, it depends. So remember, something we were talking about, I don't have it drawn here. Well, actually, yeah, we do over here. Something we were talking about before is that if we assume that this yellow or green, I'm not sure what the color is here, if this means that you're into like debate lord stuff, which a lot of people, a lot of hosts, especially when I'm talking to them, both in public and in private, will tell me the audience doesn't really know what they like. The audience actually really likes debate. They really like drama, but they say they don't want that. And so the audience doesn't really know what they want. Okay, and I think that can be kind of fair, because from the host perspective, when they do drama, when they do debate lord stuff, they get more people. So from their perspective, it would seem that way. But what we fail to understand is that there's a lot of overlap between these, that these are just tastes that people have. And if we look here, some people may have a dominant taste for debate lord and drama stuff, but a lot of other people have varied tastes. A lot of other people might like the blue of calm and casual conversations. Other people might really like the purple of policy-specific discussion, right? More people still might be interested in entertainment as opposed to debate lord or drama stuff, and it just so happens that those are entertaining, you know? I think the things that people are attracted to and the communities they associate with are pretty overlapping. And so to make any claim about the audience segments more generally is difficult, I think. If we assume the common understanding that everybody's a debate lord and we go on that theory that everybody likes drama and debate, you may actually, by that logic, see viewers that vote the right-wingers to continue because they produce drama and debate, right? So I don't know. I don't know if we could predict that the right-wingers get voted off so quickly, because if we go by the traditional logic that people are watching these for the entertainment value and the drama value and not so much the substantive level of conversation, then you could actually see these turn into like cockfights, right? Where we pick the best thing that we want to go into this round and fight every single time. It may be that we don't pick the person who's best able to communicate across both sides. We may just pick the person who's the craziest. That could very well be the way this plays out. In any case, I think it would be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, if you were able to pass that on to the chat and they were able to decide, I don't know, would they vote those people off that they disagree with, or would they keep them around because it's interesting to see people argue with them? I don't know. It's tough to say. And it may be that the response is much more dynamic. It may be that it's more of a push and pull, that at some points in the middle of the conversation, if it's too heated, the viewers decide, I've had enough of so-and-so. They need to be out of here. They're causing too many problems. And then it may be that later on in that same stream, it gets too boring and they want something a bit more crazy. So they take out the person that's been stabilizing the conversation, right? Like if we have one person arbitrating whatever between everybody, or in the idea of the round table with set times, if we have somebody who is getting a lot of time, it would be funny as fuck if the viewers took the best speaker of the left side and removed them. How funny would that be? It'd be like a chicken without its head off. You'd have a bunch of people who hadn't been debating the whole time or who aren't able to, that now have nobody they can put their time into. So I'm more imaginative, but I apply that same imagination to panels currently, and I'm disappointed by the way that they predictably turn out. So I could be wrong, but I see a lot of different ways this could play out depending on the audience if you gave them that power. I'll check out the VOD. I'm interested in your thoughts on the Kenosha stuff. We're mostly talking about the arguments and how a lot of them don't really work, or a lot of them are temporally biased. So a lot of them either require that we pay most close attention to what happened before the inciting incident. Some require us to pay a lot of attention to the inciting incident, which we don't know about, and others require us to only focus on the video and to base most of our arguments off of what we've seen in the video. And it tends to be that there were divides between these flavors of argument. Need less debate, more discussion. Hell yeah. And which these could turn into. I'm just saying debate because that tends to be the way that things go, but they could easily just be discussions too. I think limiting people's time may make it to where it's not worthwhile to engage in arguments. For instance, if I only have 5 minutes to talk, am I going to use those 5 minutes to create a bunch of drama where a bunch of people are going to respond? Like, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't really work out the best for you, especially if you're put on the spot and unable to respond. And depending on how unfairly you make these rules with the time, like you could make it to where like responses actually require 30 seconds of time from you. And therefore everybody can just ask you questions and slowly dwindle away your time, which could make like attention seeking actually problematic. And this is what I mean is like, I like rules because they let us secretly, like the Republicans and the Democrats know this, that like gerrymandering and things like that change the way elections go, or the changing the way that like how you have to register to vote can change all of a sudden who's showing up at the ballot boxes. I think changing the rule, those are both hella negative examples, but very insidious. But if you change these rules for the Twitch streamers, you kind of necessarily change the behavior that gets exhibited. You can kind of like favor some behavior and make rules against other kinds of behavior without explicitly doing that. And that's an interesting thing to play around with, in my opinion. Anywho, basically, that's what I do on Twitch. I talk about communication, so if you appreciated this, if you liked it, if you want more interesting kind of random things, because I talk at levels that maybe other streamers I don't hear talk at, yeah, go ahead. Anywho, I'm Booksmarts. My real name is Noah. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Let's go ahead and find you a home for the rest of your day.